Emerson Mnangagwa and Constantino Chiwenga, two prominent figures in Zimbabwean politics, rose through the ranks of the ruling ZANU-PF party. Mnangagwa, known for his ruthlessness, earned the nickname the Crocodile. He held various ministerial positions under Robert Mugabe, gaining a reputation for his political maneuvering and close ties to the military. Chiwenga, a military strategist, played a crucial role in Zimbabwe's liberation struggle. He rose through the ranks of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, eventually becoming the commander of the armed forces. Both Mnangagwa and Chiwenga were deeply embedded in the ZANU-PF's intricate web of power. They shared a long history of loyalty to Mugabe, serving as key enforcers of his regime. However, as Mugabe's health deteriorated and succession battles intensified, a rift emerged between the two men and the First Lady, Grace Mugabe. Grace Mugabe, harboring her own presidential ambitions, saw Mnangagwa as a threat to her plans. As the rivalry escalated, Mnangagwa found himself increasingly sidelined. His supporters within ZANU-PF were targeted, and his political influence waned. Chiwenga, on the other hand, maintained his position of power within the military, carefully observing the unfolding political drama. He recognized the growing threat to his and Mnangagwa's interests posed by Grace Mugabe's faction known as G40. The stage was set for a dramatic showdown that would reshape Zimbabwe's political landscape. The simmering tensions within ZANU-PF reached a boiling point in November 2017. At a rally in Harare, Grace Mugabe launched a scathing attack on Mnangagwa, accusing him of disloyalty and plotting against her husband. The First Lady's public humiliation of Mnangagwa sent shockwaves through the party and the country. It was a clear signal that she was consolidating her power and would stop at nothing to ensure her ascension to the presidency. In a calculated move, Mugabe, influenced by his wife, dismissed Mnangagwa from his position as vice president. Mnangagwa, fearing for his safety, fled the country, seeking refuge in neighboring South Africa. His dismissal triggered a swift and decisive response from the military, which had remained loyal to him. Chiwenga, viewing Mnangagwa's removal as a direct threat to his own interests and those of the military establishment, decided to act. The military's intervention, dubbed Operation Restore Legacy, was swift and bloodless. Tanks rolled into Harare, strategic government buildings were secured, and key members of the G40 faction were arrested. The military's actions sent a clear message that it would not tolerate any attempt to disrupt the existing power structure. The coup, though bloodless, marked a turning point in Zimbabwe's political history, ending Mugabe's decades-long rule. Under Chiwenga's leadership, the military moved swiftly to consolidate its control. State television and radio stations were taken over, broadcasting pronouncements that downplayed the coup as a bloodless correction. The military insisted that it was not targeting Mugabe himself, but rather the criminals surrounding him, a thinly veiled reference to Grace Mugabe and her G40 allies. The international community watched with bated breath, condemning the coup and calling for a return to constitutional order. However, the military's grip on power remained firm. Mugabe, under house arrest, refused to step down voluntarily. Negotiations ensued, with regional mediators seeking a peaceful resolution to the crisis. After days of uncertainty, Mugabe finally agreed to resign. His resignation, met with jubilation on the streets of Harare, marked the end of an era. Mnangagwa, who had been in exile in South Africa, returned to Zimbabwe to a hero's welcome. He was sworn in as the country's new president, promising a new era of democracy and economic prosperity. Section 4. A fragile pact. Mnangagwa and Chiwenga's power-sharing deal. Mnangagwa's ascension to power was widely seen as a victory for the military and for Chiwenga in particular. Chiwenga, having orchestrated the coup, was rewarded with the position of vice president. A power-sharing agreement was struck, with Mnangagwa focusing on the political and economic spheres, while Chiwenga retained significant influence over the security forces. This arrangement, however, was inherently unstable. Both men harbored presidential ambitions, and their alliance was built on a foundation of convenience rather than trust. Mnangagwa, aware of the potential threat posed by Chiwenga's military backing, moved cautiously to consolidate his power. Mnangagwa began by strategically placing his allies in key positions within the government and the ZANU-PF party. He also sought to cultivate international support, presenting himself as a reformer eager to break with Zimbabwe's authoritarian past. Chiwenga, meanwhile, maintained a relatively low profile, focusing on his role within the security establishment. However, his continued influence over the military and his close ties to the War Veterans Association made him a formidable force. Section 5. Seeds of Discord, Mnangagwa consolidates power. As Mnangagwa consolidated his grip on power, cracks began to appear in his alliance with Chiwenga. Mnangagwa's attempts to sideline his former allies within the military, coupled with his perceived reluctance to address the country's economic woes, fueled discontent within the ranks of the war veterans and some sections of the security forces. Chiwenga's health also became a point of speculation and concern. Rumors of his declining health circulated, further fueling anxieties about a potential power vacuum. Mnangagwa's supporters, sensing an opportunity, began to openly challenge Chiwenga's authority. The stage was set for a renewed power struggle, this time between the former allies who had orchestrated Mugabe's downfall. In 2019, Mnangagwa reshuffled his cabinet, removing several key Chiwenga allies from their posts. This move was widely seen as a sign of Mnangagwa's growing confidence and his determination to assert his authority over all branches of government, including the military. The power balance had shifted, and the once unthinkable was now a distinct possibility. Mnangagwa, the cunning survivor, was maneuvering to outmaneuver the very man who had helped him to power. Section 6. The uncertain future of Zimbabwe's power struggle. The ongoing power struggle between Mnangagwa and Chiwenga has significant implications for Zimbabwe's future. The fragile pact that brought them together has unraveled, leaving the country vulnerable to instability and renewed authoritarianism. Mnangagwa, despite his promises of reform, has shown an increasing tendency to resort to Mugabe-era tactics to silence dissent and maintain his grip on power. The military, a key player in Zimbabwean politics, remains a potent force. Its loyalty is divided, with some factions remaining loyal to Chiwenga, while others have pledged allegiance to Mnangagwa. The potential for the military to intervene once again in the country's political affairs remains a constant threat. The Zimbabwean people, who dared to hope for a brighter future after Mugabe's ouster, are once again caught in the crossfire of elite power struggles. The country's economic woes have worsened, and the government's response has been characterized by corruption and mismanagement. The international community, once cautiously optimistic about Mnangagwa's presidency, has grown increasingly disillusioned. The future of Zimbabwe hangs in the balance. Will Mnangagwa succeed in consolidating his power and establishing himself as the country's new strongman? Or will Chiwenga, despite his health challenges, mount a comeback, plunging Zimbabwe into further turmoil? The answers to these questions will determine the fate of millions of Zimbabweans who yearn for nothing more than a stable, prosperous, and democratic future.